crossroads. You know, the world, this week especially, it's getting a little too interesting for my tastes. A little too exciting. And, you might say it's a bit fucked up. And so I've been reminding myself that it's been this way before. The world has seen other shitstorms. And that these aren't the worst of times, necessarily. Shit like this has happened before. And there's a good example. Once upon a time, ancient Egypt was at a similar crossroads to the one that we're facing today. Things were really falling apart. Egypt was freaking out. You can see it in their hieroglyphs, you can see it in their texts. And what's interesting is back then, Egyptians had those who they regarded as gods, and like real gods, not sort of a metaphorical kind of idea god that we have in the sky, but real gods that walked amongst them. And one of these gods, Hermes, is the one that I'm going to talk about today. And he and these gods, like Zeus, Apollo, the whole family, the whole clan, they walked among men. And the Egyptians claim and believed that these gods were the ones responsible for the pyramids. So, I don't know that I have many regrets in life. I don't know that my mind is actually sophisticated enough to process something like regret. But for me, I look back on things and I'm frequently of two minds. I'm constantly looking back on things and I'm in conflict about it. Sometimes the past is as confusing to me as the future. Once I had the opportunity in the early 2000s to visit Egypt, and I didn't go. And I had lots of reasons that were very important to me at the time, but they just don't seem all that important now. And I don't know much about regrets. I know that I don't have very many of them, but this is probably one of them, because I think that if I had gone, I'd be a different man, maybe a better man, having gone. And all I can do now is try to learn what I can and make up for it. And who knows, maybe one day I'll get a chance to go. But what started me down this is I've always been curious about the world, curious about engineering and architecture. And now I'm a trained engineer, and I have a hard time believing that a bunch of technologically simple slave owners forced people against their will to build structures as grand as the pyramids. You might be able to get slaves to pick cotton, but I don't think you could get them to build structures as grand as the pyramids. And, I can't say that having seen them in person, but I've seen the photographs, and you can see the photograph that I'm showing you here. It's incredible. It looks alien, to use the term, to the area, to the rest of Egypt. And my theory, this is not a fully formed theory, but back then, even as a kid, it was like they were built by something much different, something older, more advanced. And I've seen the photos of the pyramids, especially the Great Pyramid. I've seen the numbers. I know the tolerances. I know that many of the blocks, there are gaps that you cannot fit a piece of paper through where there's no cement in the structure. The blocks are just perfectly placed. And I don't know, I've never seen a good plan presented for how it could have been constructed at the time. So I've never seen a viable engineering plan that anybody could come up with today to do it. So with what the materials that they had back then, I have a lot of doubts. And there's the precision of the materials that they had in general, where they got them. There's a whole bunch of questions that I don't even have time to go into right now, because there are better men that have done that. Because turns out my theory is not original at all. And there have been actual real scholars and true explorers, not just moderately handsome guys with Hawaiian shirts and albeit snazzy black lab coats. But these are serious men that have really done their homework. And one of these gentlemen is Graham Hancock. And I just have to say, thank God for Graham Hancock. This man is worth watching. Now, if you don't have $50,000 for a year of college, even if you do, I suggest maybe don't spend it on $50,000 worth of college. Maybe go to YouTube and just watch Graham Hancock. and get inspired that way, because all you really need to get inspired is seeing a little bit of passion in action. And that's what you're going to get. Just watch anything that Graham Hancock says. And people rip him off and they repost everything he says. It's really all worth watching. I'm sure he has a Patreon or something. This man needs to be paid. But he's a gift from God. His passion is a gift from God, especially during times that are kind of gloom and doom. So thank God and praise Jesus to our heroes. And also, another man for the Vanadium League of Heroes, ladies and gentlemen, is John Anthony West, who used to give a legendary tour of Egypt. And he's talked about it. He has like a bunch of podcasts. He's been on a bunch of podcasts where he's talked about it. And he has a famous Amazing Egypt documentary. It's a little bit old now, but it's well worth watching. These men are our real heroes. And so it was really Graham Hancock that taught me a little bit about Egypt. And what I'm going to talk about today is one of those gods that I mentioned earlier who walked amongst men in Egypt. And this god, Hermes. And he went by a bunch of different names. Thoth was one of them. Although when I read, it's kind of confusing. People talk about Thoth and Hermes as two distinct separate gods, and then others will talk about them like they're the same. Sometimes they're hyphenated. And these gods, they have a very complex family tree. So Hermes you have to think, is like the grand poobah of really all of the earthly gods, and not the sort of metaphorical kind of gods that we have in Christianity in the West, but the gods that had sort of specialties. But this guy was really kind of like had the best specialty, the best powers, if you will. So he was considered the herald of the gods, the protector of all humans, travelers, thieves, merchants, and orators. And I'm taking that from Wikipedia. And what's interesting about him is he was a god that could move in the real world, our earthly world, and the underworld. So, and he also he was a protector of the flock. He loved to protect sheep. So there's a photo, and I don't know why their noses are frequently vandalized in a lot of these old sculptures. And I know I should know there was a group that did that, and I'm not sure who that was. But the symbol for Hermes, the caduceus, is used in medicine and as a symbol for physicians in the United States. So Hermes' family tree, I can't even go in. These god family trees are so complicated. This is, like way worse than any kind of soap opera that you'd see. So Hermes is the son of Zeus and Maya. And, oh man, Zeus is doing a lot of fathering of a lot of kids. And he does a lot of zigging and zagging on this family tree, oh boy. But Zeus was the father of Hermes, and Hermes was one of the biggest, baddest gods. Got along great with humans, respected among the gods, recorded a lot of his ideas, and he was the guide of the underworld. And there's a great painting, Souls on the Banks of the Acheron, and you can see Hermes in his great funky hat with the wings, and you can see how cool he looks, and you can see all the souls that are in the riverbank, and they're all trying to grab on Hermes because he's the one that knows what's going on. He's like, all the souls are like, oh, guide us, Hermes. So Hermes is the guide. And there's a great old saying, and it's also a great movie too that's worth watching. As above, so below. And this comes from Hermes' philosophy, the Hermetian philosophy. So the idea of the microcosm and the macrocosm, that things are a fractal repeating structure, that no matter how you try to dissect them or zoom out, it's really sort of the same similar structure. So this idea was really Hermetian in origin, as far as I've been able to find. So that brings us to the crossroads. So Hermes is addressing what I'm going to read today is Hermes addressing one of his pupils. And he's warning him about this crossroads and the times that they're facing. And that Egypt was going down, and there was nothing that anybody could do about it. and it's a very scary thing that I'm going to read. But it's hopeful as well. And it shows that things really do move in cycles, and shitstorms come and shitstorms go. But this is Egypt at a crossroads. This is Hermes. There will come a time when it will have been in vain that Egyptians will have honored the Godhead with heartfelt piety and service, and all our holy worship will be fruitless and ineffectual. The gods will return from earth to heaven. Egypt will be forsaken, and the land that was once home of religion will be left desolate and bereft of the presence of its deities. O Egypt, Egypt of thy religion, nothing will remain but an empty tale, which thine own children in time will come not to believe. Nothing will be left but graven words, and only stones will tell of the piety. And in that day, men will be weary of life, and they will cease to think of the universe as worthy of reverence and wonder. They will no longer love the world around us, this incomparable work of God, this glorious structure which he has built, this sum of good made of diverse forms, this instrument whereby the God operates in that which he has made, ungrudgingly favoring man's welfare, this combination and accumulation of all manifold things that call forth for veneration, praise, and love of the beholder. Darkness will be preferred to light, and death will be thought more profitable than life. No one will raise his eyes to heaven. The pious will be deemed insane, the impious wise. The madman will be thought a brave man, and the wicked will be esteemed as good. And as for the soul, and the belief that it is immortal by nature, or may hope to attain immortality, as I've taught you, all of this they will mock and even persuade themselves that it is false. No word of reverence or piety, no utterance worthy of heaven will be heard or believed. And so the gods will depart from mankind, a grievous thing, and only evil angels will remain, who will mingle with men and drive the poor wretches into all manner of reckless crime, into wars, robberies, and frauds, all things hostile to the nature of the soul. The earth will tremble, and the sea will bear no ships. Heaven will not support the stars in their orbits. All the voices of the gods will be forced into silence. The fruits of the earth will rot into the soil, will turn barren, and the very air will sicken with sullen stagnation. All things will be disordered and awry. All good will disappear. But when all this has befallen, then God, the creator of all things, will look on that which has come to pass, and he will stop the disorder by the counterforce of his will, which is the good. He will call back to the right path those who have gone astray. He will cleanse the world of evil, washing it away with floods, burning it out with the fiercest fire, and expelling it with war and pestilence. And thus he will bring back in his world its former aspect, so that the cosmos will once more be deemed worthy of worship, wondering, and reverence. And God, the maker and maintainer of the mighty fabric, will be adored by men of that day with continuous songs of praise and blessing. Such is the new birth of the cosmos. It is a making again of all things good, a holy and awe-inspiring restoration of all nature, and it is wrought inside the process of time by the eternal will of the Creator. Wow. There are some parts of that I really love. This part I just have to read again. Darkness will be preferred to light, and death will be thought more profitable than life. No one will raise his eyes to heaven. The pious will be deemed insane, the impious wise. The madman will be thought a brave man, and the wicked will be esteemed as good. It's written thousands of years ago. And I think it's, as I say, it's just, I've heard this years ago, and it's been coming back to me. I've been thinking about it more recently in the times that we're facing. And, something about Hermes, man. Hermes, maybe he was a god because he's talking that good shit here. So, but I think what's good to focus on here is that the whole idea is that it's a cycle, and that the shitstorm will pass, and that clear skies will be left. And I could do without a lot of the bad things at the end, though, to be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen. But that was Hermes, and Jesus, and Egypt, and Egypt at the crossroads. So, this has been Vanadium. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.